Okay, so the last session of the day is with our special guest here from CCP, of course, CCP Fozzie. If you have been to FanFest, you'll know how these sort of things roll. Basically, it's our opportunity as the community to engage with the CCP developers. Obviously, in FanFest, they have a number of streams, and they have game design guys, they have art guys, they have all sorts of different groups. We only have the one gentleman here. He's obviously from the game design team, but he is willing to maybe discuss other items of the game. But the concept is that it's all about us talking to him as much as him talking to us. Obviously, we heard him this morning. So, lead off. Basically, we've only got the two microphones, but it is literally our opportunity to say, what about this, Fozzie? I think this is the awesomest thing ever. And he'll agree or disagree, or otherwise give a comment, yeah?
Yeah. Actually, what we can do is, I can use that mic so you can have two to pass around.
Actually, that might be better, actually, to be honest, yeah. Ben?
It means I have to stand up, but I can't.
Yeah, sorry.
If it's not your department, it's not NDA.
Yeah. Yeah, basically, so like this is similar to the kind of things we do at FanFest. Usually it's a smaller group. This is like even bigger than the wormhole roundtable at FanFest, which ended up spilling out into like the main hallways and everything. So yeah, you guys can ask me what you like. I'll do my best to answer. Obviously, I'm a game designer on EVE, so things that are related to like technical stuff and the servers and programming, I don't know as much about. Things relating to our other games like Dust and Valkyrie, I don't know much about, at least not the specifics usually. So I'll do my best to answer what I can, but some questions may get a, sorry, I don't know about that.
Okay, we'll kick off with the question. Go.
Hey, Fuzz. Yeah, just this is a bit of a statement plus a question sort of thing. Earlier it was raised an issue of clone costs and effect on PvPers. And the first bit is the comment which someone mentioned how about getting into 0-0 and what skill points you need. And in Agony, the attitude, if you're willing to PvP, you should really get in straight away and not wait until you skill up, because, you know, killing stuff and having right attitude kind of trumps everything else. But that goes back to the issue of raising clone costs, and you guys have done some awesome stuff on getting smaller ships to be more valid in fights, and all these changes to the warp mechanics are fantastic ways to really, you know, to kind of negate the issue that bigger is better. You can fly inti as equally. But I do feel extremely stupid if I die in my 20 mil clone flying a T1 cruiser or frigate. And the issue is that when the clone cost was adjusted, which was effectively pushing it down a bracket to like 50% of the cost, you guys changed also all the Bell Cruiser and the Destroyer 5s, and you split them. So I'm back where I started. I'm back at the same over 100 mil skill point clone cost, and I haven't been training actually in years for that very reason, because, you know, it's kind of stupid. So do you guys have any sort of a time frame on actually addressing the issue of clones and getting more people less afraid to lose, you know, skills rather than, you know, getting them into small ships that you've been trying to fix?
Yeah, it's a very good question. Although I do have to say it's kind of funny. It's sort of the ultimate first world problem. My video game character has too many skills, and I got a bunch of free skills, so now I've got more skills than I want. But yeah, it is a definite concern. It basically comes down to the same answer I gave before, which is that we don't really like the fact that the system doesn't have interesting gameplay behind it right now. It's not really a valid choice you make. It's just whether you remember to or not, and whether you just have to pay. There's no ifs, ands, or buts about it. So we definitely want to make a better system for that, a system that has real choice and real gameplay. Timelines, you're not going to hear me give much in the way of timelines, just because that's the kind of thing. Game development is necessarily quite fluid, and so we usually don't commit to timelines until something is actually almost done. And in this case, it's not actually almost done, so no timelines I can give, sorry. I mean, there is always the potential for more tweaks. We made the first set of changes with the keeping in mind that we might want to make more later in the same vein, but really those wouldn't get to the root of the problem. They'd just be sort of papering over it.
Can I just ask if you can we just have single questions? We've got a lot of people, and give a lot of people chances. ask your question maybe, and then get Fozzie's answer, and then not engage in him having a conversation per se, especially when you haven't got your microphone, just so everybody can hear as well. Yeah, that's just a bit of a protocol. So we'll go to the gentleman that's got the microphone over there, and over to Radsy.
Hi, Fozzie. My question's about AFK cloaking. I don't really have an opinion either way because but also I use it to my advantage.
Mike's cutting out, Amber. Is that on purpose?
Thanks, Hannah. So yeah, I both use it to my advantage and I'm also annoyed by it. My question is, does CCP regard it as a broken mechanic or a working?
So yes, for anyone that didn't hear because of the microphone cutting out, it's a question about AFK cloaking.
Oh, is that what it is? All right.
Okay, yeah, so the question is whether we consider it to be a broken mechanic, work as intended. We don't consider it to be a broken mechanic. I mean, it's an aspect of the game. No one has ever been killed by an AFK person. It's only once they actually get back to their computer that they start doing things. It definitely it plays into a lot of very interesting aspects of the game, the kind of psychological aspect in that it's really down to perception more than the actual situation. If you don't hear about AFK cloaking being a problem, for instance, in wormholes, even though people are just as dangerous there. So there's a lot of kind of layers to it. What I will say, and it's the same thing, this is obviously a question we get a lot for very good reason. It's not something where we think that AFK cloaking is really bad and needs to be removed from the game or fixed or anything like that. What we would like to see though is we see opportunities for more interesting gameplay in that area. And so we would definitely like to add new and exciting gameplay in the aspects of the game revolving around hiding and finding people. Providing some cool cat and mouse gameplay. So I don't think it's going to be something where we nerf it because we think it's bad, but it is something where we would love to see some really cool new gameplay someday. That is one option, but again, that comes down to we want to add the actual gameplay rather than just removing something.
All right, the burning fields mechanic comes up quite often in various fanfests. The Rubicon changes obviously steps in that direction. Is there any other ideas on the back burner or any ideas?
Well, there's always AFK cloaking.
And I guess, is there any that you're willing to share that are being played around with?
So this is a good question. It is obviously something that's the kind of thing that we built the siphon units to be a small step forward with. That kind of asymmetrical warfare where you can do things to bug someone even when they're not around. You don't have to always be in the same time zone as them, which is kind of handy too. So there's cool things we're seeing people do with that already. It is definitely something we want to do more with. It's definitely something that we feel there's a lot of cool opportunities provided by the new mobile structure system to do more interesting things with that. As for details, you're going to have to keep an eye on our website, and things might start appearing there over the next couple months.
Bam, your side?
Me again. I'd like to get just some comments on the recent live event, which I think might generate some interest. As somebody who sort of wormholes and HiSec, wormholes and then does HiSec, I went on this roam, fully expecting to have my ass shot off, and which is exactly what happened. So that's fine, but it was clear that the fleet, the two HiSec fleets that were created, had some leadership issues. Perhaps is probably the best way of putting it. Whereas I think the boys from Goon Swarm and so forth had a more coordinated time of it. Did CCP regard that as a success or a failure? Was what you wanted to achieve in that live event done? And will you be doing similar events, but will you be doing them differently, or what can we expect from them?
All right, so yeah, it's a very good set of questions. I wasn't directly involved with any of the planning of that kind of stuff. So when it comes to that, mostly what I know is from kind of seeing it from the outside and then also talking to the people involved with it. The dev blog that, what's his actual dev name? It's named Dave, but it was Falcon. It wasn't Falcon that put it out. It was our QA director, but I can't remember his CCP name, but he's an awesome guy. Anyways, he put out a dev blog about it. None of the stuff in there was lies. So I know there's been some people asking, oh, was this like a secret CCP plan? They were trying to get everyone. No, it was just, it was a series of mistakes were made. And a lot of stuff didn't go as planned. So they did not expect that many people to show up, which then caused the tie-dye. They did not expect then to have, because the tie-dye, it takes so long to get there and all the time to respond and all that kind of stuff. So they did go into that expecting that the Empire group would win the day in this, that it would end up being like 40 Empire guys, 50 Empire guys showing up, and then we'd have our like 4 defenders, and that was the idea. Obviously, it turned out to be much more popular than they expected. So it is not generally considered a success. Some aspects of it worked in that we got like the actual story result that we wanted a story result. The players could kind of choose the outcome. In this case, the pirate factions won. So that happened, which is, yeah. So that was one of the goals, and that goal was achieved, that some result happens. The obvious goal of a bunch of people have an interesting and fun time didn't happen so much. So that didn't go as well as expected. It is something that they definitely want to keep doing, live events that take place and at least have aspects of them in low second 0-0, but they're taking away a lot of lessons from this to try to do it better. Do things like be a lot better at illustrating to players what they're getting into, that, hey, we are going to 0-0. They kind of expected it to be clear, but obviously it wasn't as clear as it should have been, and finding other ways to kind of get people to their destinations without having to work with tie-dye jumps, because obviously it's people jumping gates that causes the biggest tie-dye spikes. So there's a lot of stuff that they've already kind of taken away from this to do better in the future. We've already done some tweaks to some of our dev tools that'll hopefully help us support some more advanced storytelling techniques in these in the future. So it's definitely something that we're going to continue with live events. We really think that there's a lot of potential there. We're going to try to learn the lessons from this one and do it better next time.
Hey Fozzie, can you tell us a little bit about node stability? Because we're trying to have a war down here, and
so yeah,
you keep saving our enemies, mate, and yeah, we'd love it if that could be sorted out.
Yeah. So node stability, obviously, there's been 2 node crashes in the last week. Definitely not what we're hoping to see. It's been a long time before that, before we had it, like we've gone for a long time without any node crashes, so it's kind of sucks that the counter's been a bit reset there. We are still in the process. We have guys investigating exactly what caused it. It wasn't just sort of normal load taking things down. They were caused by specific bugs. So those are being nailed down, and they're finding the exact aspects of it that's causing the problem. It's obviously something that these are very big fights. They're causing a lot of load. The best thing you can do is just keep sending in the fleet fight notifications for every system that you think there's going to be a fight in. When in doubt, send in more notifications than less. We're totally okay with you sending in 50 fleet fight notifications if there's 50 systems that you think have a good chance of there being a fight. It's going to be somewhere in that area. And that's the kind of thing that'll help reduce the lag at least. And we're going to keep working on our end. We basically have assigned a SWAT team of programmers to getting these specific crash issues solved, and they're back in Reykjavik working really hard to get that fixed for you.
Back to the AFK cloaking topic.
Oh, hi.
Most games will remove the player's connection if they're AFK for a certain amount of time. I assume the main reason would be a load sort of a issue. By the end of the day in EVE, I'm guessing there's a heck of a lot of AFK players at downtime. Do you monitor how many that would be? What sort of percentage?
I'm sure we could monitor that. It's something that an AFK player isn't actually causing a lot of load for our system. The places where we see a lot of load is from undocks and docks and jumps. That's where the vast majority of load comes from now. So if someone's not doing that, they're actually not loading the server very much. So we're not really too concerned about it from a performance side of things. The other thing is, so we've often heard the suggestion, oh, well, what if we set up an automatic removal from kick you off the server if you're AFK for a certain amount of time, and that'll prevent you from AFK cloaking. The problem is the easy workaround of that is have a mouse jiggle program. So it's something that I wouldn't expect we would do. If it ever turns out to be a performance problem, then we probably could do it. I'm sure our programmers could get something like that done, but I don't think there's any plans to do it right now.
Fozzie, hi.
Hello.
My question is with regards to what I've been seeing down in the south. We've been trading Tech 3 cruisers back and forth between us and the Russians now for a few weeks. I'm
sure the wormholers thank you.
Yeah, well, And subsequently, there's battlefields littered with T3 hulls, or T3 wrecks. A cloaky salvage vessel for those people who are more enterprising when it comes to their PV activities.
I mean, yeah, it's an interesting idea. In the meantime, there's your best bet is probably another, like a Cloaky Tech 3. You could fit it out and get a pretty decent number of highs on it. And also, one of the cool things about that is in 0-0, you can drop the new mobile tractor units. And you can even drop those mid-battle and just see them, like, stuff getting pulled all around. They'll get shot, but it's still hilarious to watch. Yeah.
Fozzie here. It's a question wrapped in an idea for the SOE battleship.
Oh, there you go.
You showed the art before of the SOE battleship that's going to be released that has a shuttle in a bay.
Yes.
I don't know about the loop mechanics, but what would be the idea of, like Sisters of Eve want all their crew to get off the ship. If the battleship's destroyed that quickly, no crew member makes it to the shuttle, what's the chance, and it'd be a smaller chance than the normal loot mechanic, of that shuttle dropping in the loot?
So the shuttle is just a cosmetic thing on it. I don't think I made that really clear enough necessarily. It's a really cool cosmetic thing. It's a part of the kind of the flavor of it. But yeah, it's not actually a real shuttle. Having it drop out would be kind of cool. We thought about, me and CCP Rise do a lot of sort of brainstorming of just sort of weird off the wall ideas. One of the ones we played around with a while ago was, what if we could have a ship set up so that when you died it, instead of popping out in your pod, you popped out in like a frigate and then you just keep fighting. That would be kind of cool someday. And do something like that, yeah. In this case, that definitely won't happen with this ship because the shuttle isn't actually a shuttle. It's a visual piece of flair on it. Yeah.
Yeah, Fozzie, as a player with an unhealthy appreciation for pos networks and reaction chains, I want to thank you for siphons. It's cured my alcoholism. I now self-harm. Thank you. Given we know POS is being looked at, have you ever considered a new class of capital purely for the POS people to deal with the huge volumes we deal with, but tied straight to POSs? Because jump freighters are great, but they're real risky to play with. Rorquals don't carry enough.
Yeah,
sort of stuck in this whole no man's land where we've got this huge requirements, but nothing really suited to our task at hand.
Yeah, I mean, it might be possible to introduce something that has like a structure bay or something like that. We obviously wouldn't want to just sort of power creep beyond jump freighters and for being moving stuff around, because that's already kind of at the extreme of what we'd like to see for ease of moving large volumes. But that's the kind of thing that could potentially happen. It's also, we also could make some significant changes to the entire kind of way that POSs work and all that, so it may end up obsoleting itself before too long. But yeah, I mean, that's the kind of ship that I wouldn't rule us doing something like that out. Thanks.
Hi, my name is Jarrell. I've got a question. You guys broke Citadel torpedoes because of that the Phoenix is now completely useless, and it can Citadel torpedo can be outrun by a carrier. Can you fix it?
So we've sped up the explosion radius quite a bit, just in Odyssey. So it's significantly better than it was. The issue is that there's kind of a fine line for the Phoenix between useless and suddenly incredibly overpowered. So we're trying to hit that line pretty well, but we ought to be very careful. So we're making changes to it carefully. But no, it's a tricky balance problem.
Down on the back here.
With Rubicon, there was a big change to the rapid light launchers. Have you found that, well, from what I've heard from people I know, they've just pulled them off the ship once they've gotten rid of that bugged reload. Has the use dropped off a lot since Rubicon, do you know?
The use has stayed actually, well, this is again before I left, so it's only in the first couple days, but before I left for Australia, the use had stayed almost exactly steady. It was staying at pretty much exactly the same rate as before. Yeah. So it's probably going to take more time to, because of stuff like that, like the missile, or no, it's not really a bug, it's the legacy missiles, and we knew that was going to happen. The same thing happened with the ASB charges. We're just basically okay with it as long as it doesn't cause too much. Yeah, and bubbles with dictors as well. So because it works itself out as people use it. We're going to have to kind of take more time to see how the usage develops over time. We're only 1 week in, or week and a half into it so far. We've been hearing a lot of feedback, both from people that don't like it as much, people that like it for the new role. It really is, it was a complete rework of the role, which obviously means that it doesn't do the same thing that it did before, but it does something completely different. So if you like that completely different thing, then it's going to be great. If you wanted it to be back the way it was before, obviously then you wouldn't be liking the changes as much. So we're going to have to take a bit more time, watch how it develops, keep getting feedback from it, and then we'll take a look at whether we want to make any more changes for 1.1.
Yeah, there's a lot of third-party, applications, EVE Mine, and that kind of stuff. Why isn't that going into the game a lot? For example, like the browser. Like, why can't we just have Google Browser or something like that?
So specifically with the browser, that's an issue. It turned out that maintaining that became just really more work than it was worth. So whether or not that gets updated anytime soon, I can't really say. It's a question of kind of resource allocation, but maintaining the browser would mean less programmers that can work on the features for the game. So that's the decision that's being made right now, is to not work on it at the moment. But when it comes to other things like integrating like EVE Mine into the client, stuff like that, obviously we want to keep improving the interface for things like skill training and try to get the best features of these into the game when we can. But also there's something great about having players building tools, because they know exactly what they're looking for, and they can basically come together and make some really cool stuff that then doesn't require us to be taking programmers off of other tasks to get implemented. So we're really happy that there's such a robust set of third-party applications, and with things like the API, and then we're going to be moving into Crest, that's designed to let people create even more great applications so they can do their own cool things too.
Hey Fozzie.
Hey.
I got a question about the unbalanced risk to reward ratio with people living in high-sec where all the money seems to be made, and in null-sec where none of the money seems to be made and all of it's destroyed. What are your perceptions on this?
Yeah, we keep an eye on all of this kind of stuff. Risk reward is a concept that your perspective changes very significantly what you think about it. Interestingly enough, you mentioned no money coming from nullsec. In fact, actually, nullsec is by far the largest source of ISK in the game, by a gigantic margin, much, much larger. Obviously, a lot of the income from highsec comes from things other than ISK, comes from then LP, which goes into faction modules, which then gets bought by people in all areas of space. But when it comes to profit, there is really a lot of profit to be made in nullsec. So we think there's definitely opportunities to add more cool ways to make profit in nullsec, more cool ways for alliances to then gain income from their members and from the activity of their members. That's all stuff we definitely want to see more of. But we don't think that nullsec is inherently broken in income gathering by any means, because it is. I see the amount of ISK that's coming in from people running anomalies. It is absolutely gigantic. Yeah.
How was it being next to Shadoo for the final match of the AT tournament while you were both trying to comment on that?
It's like, there's a kind of just raw energy that emanates from him. It's like it's like standing beside a bull in a bullfighting ring. It's just like run all over the place. He's amazing to work with for that, and you guys are very fortunate that he's now moved down to this country. Unfortunately, he couldn't make it here, but you guys have a really great guy now in Australia that will hopefully be a fixture at some of your events, especially over on the west side.
Yeah, it's Crokioki. I seem to be the only incursion runner here. I know the last live event there was a lot of incursion runners turned up because of the dev blogs. There was a lot of concern that changes were going to be made to incursions, or incursions were going to be stopped. Can you give us some information on what's going to be
So that was an incredibly great troll. It was one of the best trolls in a long time. The mention of, I wonder if this attack will just be to end incursions once and for all, was thrown in by our lore guys as a just a red herring. We're not going to start deleting incursions and removing them from the game, don't worry. That was entirely in there to distract people from the actual source of it, which was to attack the first of the ghost sites, basically.
Hi. Your department, Fozzie, Rise, and Euterbium. I don't know anything about Euterbium, but you and Rise are both prominent PvPers, or were before you became devs, at least I believe so. Have you guys had many, you know, internal server fights and figured out who's the best PvPer?
So,
is there any E-peen swinging going on?
This is where I get really smug. So we did have don't do that a lot. I mean, we do practice. We play around with different ship fittings when we're kind of designing ships and do a bit of just like to kind of get a feel for how they perform and just how they maneuver and stuff like that. But what we did do was when we were testing the internal tools for the 11th Alliance tournament, we ran a 1v1 tournament where like just so to see if the brackets worked and that it set up the next match properly and all that kind of stuff. And I did win that. I beat Rise in the finals. That being said, I think he would probably, if we had 10 matches, he would probably win like six of them or something. Like he would probably win a bit more than me. He's a very good PvPer, and I think he's better at the specifics of piloting than I am. But we have actually a lot of very good PvPers in CCP. A lot of players that have come over. Some very old ones. Some people may not even kind of remember some of these old names. But guys like Ifni, who's one of the old classic great PvPers, who works at CCP and has for many years. And we do our best to keep up with what's going on and playing, and so there's a lot of PvPers kind of from all over the spectrum in CCP.
Just my question's about Titans. In the future, how do you see Titans go? Do you think they're going to be more of a logistics module, an offensive module, defensive?
It's a very good question. When I figure it out, I'll let you know. It's a tough question. It's something that we're continuously trying to come up with more ideas and concepts for different options that we have going forward with it. Right now, we're focusing on trying to get some of the smaller ship classes and ships that are used by more people up to par. But like in the meantime, we do recognize the Titans are kind of off on a shelf, which is. No, there's still tons, but yeah, the Titans are definitely like we need to get more work into them. Some of the things we would like to do, I mentioned a bit in our last, like at the end of the presentation when someone asked a similar question. I think there's some cool options with doing things like effects on the local grid and that kind of stuff.
Infinite point. I'd love to see infinite points on Titan. That way you have to commit them in a Super Cat fight and we get to kill lots.
That'd be interesting. I mean, I think that would kind of weaken the role of Hictors a bit, maybe a bit too much. So, but that would definitely be an option. There's a lot of stuff on the table, a lot of stuff we could do with them. We're not entirely sure exactly what they're going to end up being, but they're going to end up being hopefully something that's a lot more fun to fly than what we have right now.
Okay, we're going to have to wind it up, guys, on the basis that we were supposed to be out of here and the facilities people are kind of giving me the wind up. So, because we do have an expensive ship to give away. Maybe just one last question from this gentleman here, and then, but keep it short, and Fozzie, if you can keep it short too, that'd be good.
Okay.
Black Jackal from the Southern Legion. Hey. I just wanted to ask your opinion on how do you believe Dust 514 should affect EVE Online and vice versa from a game development point of view, and also ask you, when are you going to come and balance Dust 514 for us?
Yeah. Well, so I'll answer the second question first. Balancing Dust 514, you probably don't want me just jumping in and starting to do that, because I do play Dust a bit, but I'm not really a first-person shooter expert, so you probably want someone who knows more about that genre and the way the balance works there. I would just start like pressing buttons randomly and see what would happen. Yeah. Either that, or I just make everything exactly like spaceships and just like, I don't know, try to do one-to-one connections, and I don't know if that would work. But for the first question, where I would like to see Dust go, I think the kind of the more the better connection. The deeper we can make it, the more significant we can make it, the better. Even if it's going to be disruptive things. We've got a principle we like in game design that we'd rather make changes that cause people passionate negative reactions than changes that don't cause any reaction at all. And so if we can make Dust something that makes EVE players alternately back and forth, incredibly happy that a Dust player just helped them, and incredibly pissed off rage quitting that a Dust player hurt them, we'd like to see both of that. So yeah, the more the better when it comes to connections.
Big hand for CCP Fozzie.